Welcome in, everyone, to the Voice of College Football. Big Ten fans in particular, gather around, Big Ten fans. We're going to go through the win totals in the conference, match them up against the schedules, let you know who's going to come out on top, plus or minus the win totals. That's what we do here at the Voice of College Football. Go bet your life away. That's what you can do with that information. No, we don't want you to do that. It's almost like playing the stock market these days. You don't want to do that either. All right. Appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football. Yes. We do appreciate you being here. Who's here, by the way? Who is here for the College Football Show, which we do, of course, every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern Time with you. Karen is here on a happy Friday. "141 days," Jackson tells us, until week 0. I would take that to the bank. If Jackson says 141 days, it's 141 days. Tuki G reminds me that next Friday is going to be our first late night call-in show. So gather around for that one too. Each and every week, we're going to do one late night call-in show. And we are going to switch it around. We're going to mix it up. We're going to make it a different night and time every week. But the first one's a Friday at 11 p.m. Eastern Time. So maybe I'll take a nap and then we will do our call-in show next Friday, 11 p.m. Eastern Time. So we won't be here. No double shows. Not doing that. We'll move our 4 p.m. Eastern Time show to 11 p.m. Who else? We certainly have placed the link in the chat. But again, everyone, thank you so much for being here. Okay. College football fans, let's get busy. Let's get down to it. We have talked a lot of just nonsense the last few days. It's been fun, but we've talked about everything but college football sometimes. I am still shopping for my Coastal Carolina t-shirt. Still shopping for my Coastal Carolina t-shirt. I went online, advertised large. I go to select it. They don't have any large selections left. Got to get my Coastal Carolina t-shirt. That is my team for 2025. Coastal Carolina. Maybe I will get one more helmet. Maybe somebody can volunteer to purchase us the next helmet. I don't know what the most recent edition was, but it was about 3 years ago because we have not been taking in helmets like we did at one point. I explained that a few weeks ago when somebody wanted a particular team's helmet. Yes, we stopped this a few years ago. 2022 was when I moved. So that's when we stopped the P.O. box to get the helmets. Actually, I did move the P.O. box. Yes, I did, to Ohio. So we did get some more helmets when I was in Ohio. But we have shut down the P.O. box, but we'll get that cranked up once again. I threw Air Force up there today. They were laying on the floor. Air Force Falcons, let's go. Let's get them up there. Our buddy Troy Calhoun, who we have interviewed here at the Voice of College Football many times. Okay. All right. Let's focus on football today because sometimes when you focus on the rest of life, my goodness, it can be rough. All right. I hope everyone out there is doing well today. Craig is here. Oh, Fat Boy 44 is telling us that Indiana clears 8.5 easy. Okay. We will give it a look. Of course, they've got 3 freebies in the non-conference. They're playing 3 high school teams. So shame on Indiana. When we did our Indiana preview schedule, I let Indiana know, whoever the athletic director is at Indiana, I looked him up at the time. I don't remember his name. Shame on you. Pathetic. Indiana, you are pathetic. You are pathetic. I cannot state that enough. You are pathetic. Rutgers, you're pathetic. There are a few others in the Big Ten that don't come to mind, but we're going to look at the schedule. So I will tell them once again, you're pathetic. Schedule someone. If Indiana would have been left out of the college football playoff last year, I would not have agreed with that, but I would have completely understood it. Not because of their Big Ten schedule, which of course was lousy. It was the easiest in the conference. Them or Rutgers, easiest in the conference. So not their fault. Played the schedule in front of them, but you still have to evaluate the schedule, which was a bunch of wins against Nebraska and Michigan State. Those kind of schools. Indiana beat one team over 500 last year. Michigan. Yes, they beat Michigan. So Indiana was not that good last year. That's all there was to it. They were Indiana good. They were much improved for Indiana, but schedule somebody in the non-conference. So if they would have been left out, and if they get left out this year, you know what? Schedule somebody. It's pathetic. Okay. We're going to get to these win totals. So we're going to CBS Sports here. But before we do that, we've got to run through some promotions here. Got to pay some bills. We most definitely today need to pay some bills. Got like an $18,000 shortfall today. Disputed National Champions, the link's down in the description section down below. Please pick it up. You will enjoy it. If you love future projections and also tied to the past, this is not just a history book, folks. We put these results into the grinder of the BCS, the 4-team, the 12-team, and the 14-team college football playoffs. Hell of a book. All right. What else do we have going? You can catch the audio for these shows. It's on Amazon, Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio. So please do that. I posted on Twitter, and maybe I should just pull up Twitter here because I will not be able to remember our star-studded cast of guests coming up next week. This is a good lineup right here. We have rarely done this well at the Voice of College Football, but I actually focused in on going after some good guests, some guys that we've seen previously, but to haul all these guys in one particular week is rather stellar, if I do say so myself. So we got Peter Burns, ESPN, SEC Network coming up next Wednesday. We've got Isaiah Hull of, I believe, Wolverine's Wire. Yes, Isaiah is a good friend, and he is going to show up for us next Tuesday. We've got Ryan Abraham, who is the founder of the USC 247 sports site forever ago, Inside Troy. So Ryan Abraham of USC fame coming in on Tuesday, as well as Matt Moscona of ESPN Baton Rouge, New Orleans. And then we've got our buddy Greg Pflugar, who's going to join us on Thursday right here at the Voice of College Football on the College Football Show. We're here every day, folks, at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. If I'm coming across just slightly hesitant, it's because somebody put the StreamYard in the dark mode and I didn't switch it back, and it's driving me crazy. Everything's black. So it's taking me a second to locate things. Okay, we'll make it through. We will make it through. Also, I have to remind you that if you got a business, you got a product, a service, your own personal brand, you can team up with us at the Voice of College Football right here. Just hit us up at sponsorships@vocfb.com. You can do that. Jinker's showing up. Good to see you. Minnie made it here. Good to see Todd as well. So, Ralph, Michigan fan. Dave's here. Okay. Again, we're going to go through the Big Ten win totals, and we're going to match them up against the schedule. And I'm going to shake my finger a few more times at Indiana and Rutgers. Pathetic. I'm going to personally send my Indiana schedule breakdown to the Indiana Athletic Department, to the AD in particular. Can somebody look that up? Jackson, do me a favor and look up the Indiana AD's name. I would appreciate that. Not that you're not doing enough now. The Indiana Athletic Director. Schedule somebody. Schedule somebody. That's pathetic. To roll your team out in front of 3 high school teams in September. It's pathetic. And I know Michigan did it. They did it as well. I get it. They did it for 2 years in a row. I know Ohio State did not play anyone non-conference last year. It was a bit of a different situation because they were scheduled to play Washington, who, of course, entered the Big Ten. That's not the intent of those schools, typically. I did pick on them. I did produce videos. I did get all over Ohio State and Michigan when they did that as well. But Indiana does this like all the time. Baylor, pathetic scheduling through the years. I think they've upped their game recently. They've got a date against Baylor. Baylor plays Auburn this year. So Alabama didn't play an out-of-conference game on the road for 12 or 13 years. But they at least played good teams. Neutral site, NFL stadiums. Don't get me started on scheduling. I guess I've already started. All right, let's get to the win totals. Oh, what is that? Okay. All right, so this is courtesy CBS Sports and this individual, Tom Fornelli. So we're going to take Tom's word for it and CBS Sports that these are accurate win totals for the Big Ten this season. And we're going to ignore Mr. Fornelli. I'm sure he's a fine person, but we're going to ignore his projections, but just look at the over-unders. There might be a site that just has the over-unders, but that's fine. This is the first one that I came up with. Illinois is over-under 7.5. Keep in mind, everyone, 18 teams in the Big Ten. 8 of them. I should have asked you first, but I'm going to tell you. 8 out of 18 Big Ten teams last year either increased their win total by at least 3 or decreased their win total by at least 3 from the previous season. So there are going to be big changes in win-loss totals in the Big Ten. We just have to find where those are going to be. And it's going to be my guess, nothing against this fine gentleman here, Mr. Fornelli. My guess is that he is going to pretty much just predict what everyone did last season to repeat this season. That's my guess, because that's the way most of us slice it. We're very conservative people by nature. We don't want to take risks. Okay, there's Illinois at 7.5 wins. Let's look at the Illini schedule. And I know that as an impartial analyst, completely unbiased in all of this, that I should not be rooting for anyone. But I said this a few months ago when somebody asked the Big Ten Western Division teams, the old guard, sorry, Nebraska, sorry, Minnie, not you, not Nebraska, they're not included. But the old guard Big Ten Western Division teams, they got a little soft spot in my heart. Purdue, Illinois, Minnesota. They've just been so downtrodden through the years. Got a soft spot in my heart. Northwestern, yes. All right, so Illinois is one of those teams, and of course, they've got a big game against Western Illinois to kick off the season. They go to Duke. Of course, Illinois beat Kansas in their big non-conference game last year. Then they've got Western Michigan. So key into this over-under is right out of the gate, this Duke game, going on the road, taking on a Duke team that went 9-4 last year with Manny Diaz coming back as the second-year head coach, and Darian Mensah, their new starting quarterback, coming in from Tulane. That's going to be a difficult game for Illinois to navigate. They start the season in the Big Ten at Indiana. Then they've got USC at home. Purdue on the road, Ohio State, Washington after the bye week on the road, Rutgers, Maryland, at Wisconsin, Northwestern. So who don't we see on this schedule? No Oregon, no Michigan, no Iowa, no Penn State. I've not run the numbers on this. Well, actually, I have run the numbers, but I posted that video so long ago, I don't remember what they are. But check out the Illinois schedule preview that I posted a few months ago. And certainly I ran down the numbers in regards to the strength of schedule level versus the rest of the Big Ten. Okay. Indiana's not going to be nearly as good this next season. Actually, they might on the field be generally the same, but the win-loss record will not indicate that. So Illinois needs to win 2 of these first 3 games. Maybe they lose to USC, maybe they go to Indiana and lose that game, but they beat Purdue, and then they've got Ohio State. So before the bye, 2-2 for Illinois is most likely. Then they should go on a bit of a run. They should be able to navigate Washington, although it's a tough trip to Seattle, Rutgers, Maryland, at Wisconsin, and Northwestern. They could win all those games. Maybe Illinois is 7-2. Oh, that's the rest of the season. There it is. Bam. Of course, they finish up with Northwestern. That's their rivalry game. Do they go 7-2 in the Big Ten? Most likely they trip up at Washington or maybe at Wisconsin. But this looks like a 6-3 Big Ten run, like it was last year for Illinois. But if I keep going down all these teams in the Big Ten and give them the same record that they had, basically the same record or close to it as last year, what I led with was 8 of 18 in the Big Ten had a drastically different record last year than they did the year before. Michigan 12-0 to 7-5. Washington 12-0 to 7-5, and others. Northwestern from 7-5 to 4-8. But I would call this one at 6-3 and probably 8-4 overall. All right, chat. Do we have a win total for the fine Illinois team? Moving on. Next up. Indiana. 8.5 wins for Indiana. 8.5 for Indiana. Indiana, you're pathetic. Oh, I'm sorry, Jackson, if you looked up the Indiana AD. Ralph has Illinois going to the playoffs. Thank you, Jackson. Letting everyone know that we've got an Indiana channel, by the way. We've got an Illinois channel as well. So we have started up shows for both of those. And I I apologize, Jackson, if you found that out for me. Edward asking, Mark, do you write college football news articles? I don't. I don't really have a desire to do that unless it would pay well, although I'm a better writer than I am a broadcaster. Not by much, but, or maybe I'm not, but that would be my assessment of the situation. I wrote for, who is it? Fansided. They approached me a few years ago. It's been quite a few years ago now, maybe 6 or 7 years ago. Fansided approached me and asked me if I wanted to write for them for a college football season. And I said, sure. And then I said, I just want to write Big Ten articles, just whatever I want to write. And they said, yeah, just give us like a rankings every week, your power poll or something like that. So it was easy to do, but yeah, you don't make anything. And yeah, but it was fine. All right, that's Indiana's schedule. And again, pathetic. Pure rubbish. Old Dominion, Kennesaw State, and Indiana State. How embarrassing. Okay, they're 3-0. They play Illinois, go to Iowa, and for most of these teams, it's impossible for us to make an accurate projection about what a particular team's going to do against a particular team in the middle of the conference. If you're Ohio State, sure. If you're Northwestern, sure. Purdue, you're pretty much going to beat everyone and lose to everyone on opposite ends. But the rest of these teams right now, you have to pack the games together and make a projection. Like Indiana's facing Illinois, going to Iowa. They go to Oregon. They got Michigan State there. They got UCLA. Well, they're most likely going to lose at Iowa and lose at Oregon. And maybe they win the other three. They go 3-2 there. Three and two. Go to Maryland, go to Penn State, Wisconsin at Purdue. 2 more losses there. Do they go 5-4? 5-4 in the Big Ten for Indiana. And then they play the 3 high school teams to start the season. And Indiana goes to 8-4. A very uninspiring 8-4. And I'm going to fall into the same trap as I am telling everyone not to fall into. And that's to basically predict these teams to do the same thing next year as what they did this previous season, because it's not going to happen. Although with Indiana, if they go from 11-1 to 8-4, that would be a 3-game drop. So they're my first candidate to drop or have a plus or minus 3. On to Iowa at 7-5. Vegas loves to put Iowa at 7-5. This seems to be their over-under every year, which they typically go over. So Iowa this season, we know they've got a new starting quarterback in Mark Gronowski. How good is he going to be? He is not practicing due to injury. We know that. But they've got a capable backup for the first time in forever in Brendan Sullivan. And, of course, their second game is on the road against Iowa State. They lost to the Cyclones this past year on a made field goal from like 56 yards at the gun. So this is a toss-up against Iowa State on the road. Iowa State's going to be pretty darn good. So let's say the Hawkeyes lose that one and they go 2-1 in the non-conference schedule. They go to Rutgers. They got Indiana. They got Wisconsin. They should win 2 of those 3 games. They'll be 4-2 after 6. And then the second half of the season, Penn State, Minnesota. They better beat Minnesota at home. Oregon. There's 2 more losses possibly right there. Go to USC, Michigan State, and then, of course, they finish at Nebraska. Check out the Iowa schedule preview that we did, because we sized up the numbers to show that Iowa's got a substantially tougher schedule than they did last year. If they go on the road and lose to Iowa State in non-conference play and could be going 5-4 in the Big Ten, let's say they lose either to Nebraska or USC, they lose to Oregon, they lose to Penn State, and they lose one of these games against Rutgers, Indiana, or Wisconsin. 4 losses in the Big Ten, 1 loss out of conference, 7-5. I would not deal with that over-under myself at 7.5 for Iowa. That is dead on. Jim says 7-5. Fat Boy says under. But let's not underestimate the Hawkeyes and Kirk Ferentz. Let me ask the chat this. There's Maryland 4.5. See, Vegas even falls into this, and it's fine for Vegas to do this because they're just wanting to generate action. That's all they care about. They don't care who bets on what side or who bets on the other side. They take their 10 or 11% and they build fancy hotels, just as long as they get equal betting on both sides. Come up with your list of 8 teams in the Big Ten, or even 5, that are going to have a 3+ difference in wins. Who am I looking for? Maryland. That's what I've been shopping right there. All I can find is an extra large. I'm not buying myself an extra large. I'd look like, I don't want to say. I was about to. Maryland. Oh, looks like Maryland. Yeah, I'm going to be getting on the Terps as well. Let's look up their athletic director's name. Pathetic. Pathetic. You should be embarrassed. You should be ashamed of yourselves for not scheduling anyone. And this is what we would correct as commissioner of college football. Everyone would play an equitable schedule. The schedules would be balanced. You would not be out there scheduling Florida Atlantic, Northern Illinois, and Towson. So we will know nothing about Maryland football except they will be 3-0 near the end of September, and we will know nothing about them. They'll win those games 37-13, 41-10, 38-17. Okay, then they'll go to Wisconsin. I have little faith in Wisconsin right now. I just don't think they're a very good football team. Washington, Nebraska, UCLA. But they've got to go to Camp Randall Stadium. They're going to be hard-pressed to win any of those games, you would think, unless Maryland has a drastic improvement and maybe this record of 4-8, 1-8 in the Big Ten last year. They had to pull off a 2-touchdown fourth quarter against USC to get a win in the Big Ten. That maybe that's an aberration because before that it was 8-5, 8-5. But they could go 0-4 right there. Where are they going to get their wins? Maybe they go to the Rose Bowl and win. Maybe they take on Indiana and get a win at home. Maybe they go to Rutgers and get a win. Let's say they get one of those as a win. And let's say maybe Michigan State as well. It's probably a 2-7 finish for Maryland in the Big Ten. And then, of course, the 3 games against the high schools that they play in non-conference play is 5-7. Fat boy going over for the Terps. Well, you get 3 right out of the gate. I might do that. That's what I should do. 79 Jet Black. If we get a sponsor for the Coastal Carolina podcast, absolutely, we will start Coastal Carolina. Boy, that's a long name. Coastal Carolina Chanticleers Live. But we will do that. I am up for it. Get us a sponsor. I will start tomorrow studying Coastal Carolina football. I'm into it. And by the way, you guys just don't need to sit there and listen to me go through these schedules. I've left the call-in link in the chat. Next up, so basically, I'm going to do the same thing that all of you are doing and that this gentleman is doing, is basically predicting everyone to have roughly the same record they had as last year. But then we're going to go back and we're going to figure out, or at least try to project early here, who's going to have a significantly different season. I think Nebraska's got a chance. 6-6 last year, 9-3. That's our benchmark for Nebraska, to go from 6-6 to 9-3. Can they do it? Let's hear from our Nebraska fans. Minnie, did you bring any others with you? Minnie, what is Nebraska going to go this year? What would satisfy you? What would you like to see? Any other Nebraska fans that we've got? What would you like to see this year? Reasonably, what would you like to see? I know you want to see 12-0. But 6-6 last year, finally made a bowl game, finally won a bowl game. And from what I understand of Minnie's fandom of Nebraska football, that was her first bowl experience. All right, Michigan 8-5, or I'm sorry, yes, they did go 8-5, but I'm looking at the over/under at 8.5 wins. All right, let's look at the maize and blue. We will find their schedule. I'm extremely confident that Michigan's going to go to Oklahoma and win. I don't think it's going to be rather impressive or anything like that, but I think they'll go there and they'll be fine and they'll win that game. They're going to win that game like 17-10. So 3-0 for the maize and blue outside the conference. Then they go to Nebraska. They're like a touchdown favorite on the opening lines there. Wisconsin at USC. Boy, if they get by USC. Now, Michigan has gone from having one of the toughest schedules in the Big Ten to arguably the easiest schedule in the Big Ten. And if they get past USC on the road, look out. Look out. Man, that schedule's easy. I already knew this, but looking at it again, this schedule's incredibly easy. No Oregon, no Penn State, no Iowa, no Illinois. Yes, that Nebraska game is going to be a bit of a test, you would think, you would hope, and USC on the road. But man, they could show up on the last day of the season 11-0. I would not be surprised at all. And the probabilities tell us that they won't, that of course that they will trip up somewhere and be 10-1 when they face Ohio State. So 8.5, I may end this show early and jump online and grab that right out of the gate. Ralph telling us that Michigan always loses when they travel west. Always. Well, they're going to stop doing that because they're going to have to make that trip every year. And so that's going to stop happening at some point. But I know what the history is there. You're right. Yeah. Michigan could go undefeated this year. I know that people don't think that they're that good, but they're winning 9 games. This here would be the most important comment made in the entire live stream. So, Karen, the way we have been promoting our sponsorships here at the Voice of College Football, knowing in this day and age that in addition to companies or individuals having products or services, they have their own personal brand. They have their own personal brand. So certainly, if you would like to, or anyone out there would like to promote their own personal brand, let's say, for example, then of course, you can contact us at sponsorships@vocfb.com, or it might be easier if you recall my email address. It's markrogerstv@gmail, markrogerstv@gmail. That was the name of this fine program at one point, Mark Rogers TV. But thanks for asking. Steve is asking, why is your show, I believe you're asking, not on prime time anymore, Mark? Well, that is a great question. That basically is because I'm tired of working at night. So basically that's what that happened. That's the way that, well, I would say that. And at one point last summer, I counted and I was doing 17 shows during the week. 17. So that's roughly 3 to 4 per day. There was one day I was doing 6. So we have peeled back from that because I was doing all these team shows that we have fortunately found other hosts for, Michigan, Florida State, etc. And I just wanted to kind of change my life around a little bit and leave my evenings open for more work. No, hopefully more fun. So that's part of it. But never fear, Steve. Starting next week, if you have not heard, we are bringing back the late night call-in show. So when I say late night, you know what that really means? It means whenever you want to make it. So at least one time per week, starting next week. And next week is already booked for Friday, the 11th at 11 p.m. Eastern Time. According to Tukey G, we are going to allow one of you, either by random chance or for some reason the spirit will move me, or somebody will make a funny comment in the chat or something, and I will say, Dave's here. When do you want our call-in show to be this week? Our late night call-in show. This is a call-in show. No calls today, but this is a call-in show technically, but we're going to do one late night call-in show each and every week. So there you go, Steve. There will be an evening primetime late night call-in show. When I say late night, if you want it to be 7 o'clock, 7 o'clock's fine. Whenever you want it to be. Yes, I do understand I had more people watching me then. I do. Hey now, Troy. It's Coach Prime, by the way, right? Isn't he supposed to go by Coach Prime? Which I refuse to say. All right, next up. So we've got Michigan. Definitely. They're one you would have to take to Vegas on or go to your, that's an outdated term. Just open up your browser and go to FanDuel or something. Michigan State, let's see, they are at 5.5 wins. They won 5 last year. Jonathan Smith in his second season. And also, of course, he brings back his starting quarterback that he brought with him from Oregon State, Aiden Childs. Oh, my bad. I was looking for Michigan State. Let's see. It's nice to see somebody is playing someone with a pulse in the non-conference schedule. Not exactly playing an elite, but a game against Boston College in week 2 at East Lansing. Michigan State should have won that game last year. They were driving for the winning touchdown, and Aiden Childs got a little greedy and went for the end zone on a ill-fated play and threw a pick to end the game. So there's one challenge for Michigan State non-conference. But, you know, that Western Michigan game, if you look at the history of Michigan State taking on the directional Michigan schools, it is often a bit of a ugly affair that they somehow survive. But they should be 3-0 going to USC, going to Nebraska, playing UCLA, going to Indiana. This is not a fun run for Jonathan Smith here. Going to Indiana, Michigan, at Minnesota, Penn State, at Iowa. Yee. If they win 2 of those games, that would be well done. Win 2 of those, well done. They probably win 1. They could win 2. I'm going to give them 2 wins here. I'm going to go with 3 wins, and then Maryland. They win 4 in the Big Ten. If they win 4 in the Big Ten, then they're bowling. They're 6-6. Even if they lose to Boston College, they're 6-6, and they go bowling. Want to remind everyone that this is a call-in show, and we've got the call-in line in the chat again right now. There it is. We're running through the Big Ten. We're looking at the win totals, and we're sizing it up against the schedule. Michigan State, and they have not been up to a bowl game since 2021. Mel Tucker, on whatever shenanigans that he's involved in right now. I am disappointed that we are arriving at roughly the same win totals because that is not going to be. Minnesota over under 6.5. They won 7 in the regular season last year with 8 coming in the bowl game. Six and a half Minnesota. They had one of the toughest schedules in the Big Ten last year. Let's go find that Minnesota schedule. And again, look at those fine, fine Coastal Carolina t-shirts. I got to get me one. All right. For the Gophers. Little open spring practice for them on Tuesday, April 15th. That's worth noting. If you got nothing to do on a Tuesday afternoon in Minneapolis, all right. They are playing a non-conference game against Cal. That's going to be a tricky one to navigate on the road. Probably a late night game. Should defeat Buffalo, should defeat Northwestern State. Even in PJ Fleck's better seasons at Minnesota, they have tripped up against somebody. They lost to Bowling Green a couple years ago. In a season, they finished 9-4. But let's see, they could be 4-0. Oh, Ohio State. So hopefully for them, they go to Columbus at 4-0. Then they've got these 4 to deal with. That's not necessarily the most daunting. Purdue at home, Nebraska at home, go to Kinnick, and then play Michigan State at home. If they're 4-1 after the Ohio State game, 6-3 at worst, 6-3. Then they've got these final games against Oregon on the road, Northwestern on the road, and Wisconsin. Give it 2-1. Give it 8-4 for the Gophers. 8-4. Over under 6.5. Over under is 6.5. I like the over if I got to go one way or the other. Ralph is enjoying the Minnesota State or the Northwestern State Demons. Charisse is here. Good to see Charisse. Likes Michigan State to get to 7-5. 8-4 for Sparty, Ralph says. That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for somebody to take some chances. Take some chances. We're going to see drastic win total differences this season, everyone. Nebraska. Here we go. 7.5 on the win total. And let's find what is going on here. Where am I? Let's get to that Huskers schedule. I know they open up with Cincinnati. Of course, they're playing them in Kansas City. Of course, where else would they play Cincinnati? Can't wait for that Nebraska-Cincinnati game. There it is. All right, we got the Huskers. All right, win those non-conference games. Cincinnati, Akron, and HCU. Is that Holy Cross? No, that's not Holy Cross. Who is that? That's I'm forgetting who that is. Tell me. Who is that? Who are we looking at there? Anybody? All right. 3-0 Michigan coming to town. Michigan State, Maryland, Minnesota. Those are winnable games. Of course they are. Man, even if they lose to the teams most expected to beat them, they could only have 2 losses late November or late October. USC at home. Go to Penn State, lose a third game. I think this is our candidate for a +3. This is our candidate for a +3, going from 6 wins to 9. Don't trip up against the Hawkeyes to close the season like they always do. Finally beat Iowa. They've lost 9 of 10 against the Hawkeyes. 9-3 would be a nice little step-up season. Need a breakthrough, Matt Rule. Need a breakthrough win. Need a breakthrough season. I know he's only been there for 2 years, and he got himself a bowl win. So that was a nice little step in the right direction. But if you looked at Nebraska's performance last year, if you looked at their wins and losses, it was very underwhelming. Nebraska's best win last year, I think, was Rutgers. Right? Rutgers, that was their best win. They lost to UCLA, team that went 5-7. 9-3, very possible. Michigan, no. Yes, Michigan and Nebraska would be my 2 selections for breaking the ±3 from last season. Michigan going from 7 wins to 10, Nebraska going from 6 to 9. Almost beat Ohio State. Almost beat Ohio State. I think basically Nebraska's almost beaten everyone in the last 6 or 7 years. Lest we bring up worst one-score record in college football, Nebraska. Matt Rule is such a better coach than Scott Frost, but until he starts to win some of these games, basically the results have been close to the same. They've lost a lot of close games. Okay, Northwestern 3.5. All right. Well, we got to look at the non-conference schedule because, come on, this is where they're most likely going to pick up some wins. Northwestern never gets any credit for anything. Let's see. We need to find Northwestern's schedule. Where are they? Where are they? Where are they? Northwestern. They're going to be playing somebody here. Where are they? I can't find Northwestern's schedule. I could have typed it in by now. There we go. Okay. They're playing somebody decent outside the conference. There it is, against Tulane. Open spring practice, 10:30 in the morning, everyone. Get there. That's 10:30 Eastern. If you want to go see the Northwestern open practice, you got to wake up and get there at 9:30 in the morning. Okay. At Tulane, that's an interesting opener. Going to play the Green Wave. They will be an underdog in that game. Western Illinois and Louisiana Monroe are their out-of-conference games. 2-1. So they got to win 2 more games to get the over. Oregon. UCLA. At Penn State, Purdue. Let's say they beat UCLA and Purdue. And then they're winning no other games, most likely, the rest of the season. So there's your 4-8. That's what they did last year, 4-8. So the likelihood of them going 4-8 again is rather minuscule. So got to change it up somewhere. But I see 4-8. 2 wins outside the conference, 2 wins in the conference, 4-8. That is a tough road stretch, or stretch drive, I should call it, going to Nebraska, USC, Michigan, Minnesota, Illinois. That's not easy. Penn State before that. I got a good question for the chat. I've got a good question. What is going to be the biggest upset in the Big Ten this year? We're looking at all these games, and we're pretty much, I'm guessing you're picking them just like me. You're just going through and basically selecting these games the way that we expect them to go down, as they did last year to a certain extent. What was the biggest upset in the Big Ten last year? It was probably, from a point spread standpoint, Ohio State and Michigan. But to me, that's not that big of an upset. I know the point spread said it was enormous. It was the 3-touchdown spread. But was there another big upset in the Big Ten last year? Give me one. I can't think of one. USC lost on the road against Maryland, but I don't think that the spread was much. They went on the road and they lost to Minnesota. I think they were a 4 or 5 point underdog. I snatched up those points immediately when I saw PJ Fleck at home against USC. Give me those 4 or 5 points. I cannot think of a big upset in the Big Ten from a point spread standpoint. Michigan State was about a 6-point dog against Iowa. And UCLA was about a 5 or 6 point dog against Iowa. Those aren't really big point spreads. Wisconsin almost beat Oregon. Did we have a big upset in the Big Ten last year? I'm not finding one. Okay, Tukey G. Oh, I love this. Okay, so we're coming up for this year. Trojan Fight. How are you? Trojan Fight, just to let you know, we will have a lot of USC programming. It's on its way. Hang in there, baby. I'll be coming with Matt Zemek, but we also have hired 2 other USC hosts. So we're coming for you. All right. Tukey G says UCLA is going to beat Penn State. That would be a good one. I think it's at the Rose Bowl. Nebraska over Michigan. Okay, I could see that. Dave is predicting 8-3 Ohio State to beat 11-0 Michigan. Well, that would be an enormous upset from the standpoint of whatever happens in that game is huge. But I can't imagine that Ohio State's going to be much of an underdog in that game. This year is different. Oklahoma over Michigan. Do we really think that that's going to be much of a point spread difference? I think that's going to be almost a toss-up. Now, I'm confident Michigan's going to win that game. Our guy, 79 Jed Buck, believes that's an Oklahoma win. I tend to side with Minnie on this one. I think that for me right now, Penn State's my Big Ten favorite. Although I'm looking at this Michigan schedule as well. USC either defeats Notre Dame, which is going to be a road game, or Oregon. Don't know where that game's going to be. All right. Tukey G took us on the best upset. Although I think that one's a good one to call right now. Pitt Snipe Husker. And of course, you're going with your boys in that one. But I do think that that's a reasonable call to make right there. UCLA is going to be Penn State. Wow. That would be a good one. Well, let's see who's next up. Okay, we looked at the Wildcats. Oh, the Buckeyes. Over under 10.5. That's a tough call. That reminds me of looking at the over-unders. This was about 3 years ago and seeing Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, all 10.5. And I thought, you know what? You take this to the bank with all three over, and two of them are, this was Nick Saban's Alabama team, Kirby Smart, Ryan Day. You know, this was arguably the three best teams in the country. You bet the over on all three of them. You're not getting 2-10-2 seasons out of those three. Not then. And that particular year, that might have been 2022. Alabama went 10-2. Georgia and Ohio State 11-1. 2022. No, Georgia went undefeated, right? Yeah. So they were 12-0, Ohio State 11-1, and Alabama. All right, Ohio State's with 10.5 wins. Well, they've got a tough schedule. They, of course, have to face Texas. Let's find this Ohio State schedule. Got the spring showcase coming up in a couple weeks. How exciting. All right. Non-conference, it's 2-1 or 3-0. Ohio State will be a slight favorite against Texas. Two new quarterbacks going at it. Julian Sayin most likely against Arch Manning. Two of the what appear to be 3 or 4 best teams in the country, we think. All right. They could trip up there. Going on the road against Washington. Going on the road against Illinois. How about your biggest upset of the season involving Ohio State? Maybe it's Ohio State going to Illinois. Going to Illinois and Wisconsin back-to-back weeks. Now, nobody's going to argue that Minnesota or Illinois or Wisconsin is in Ohio State's league, but playing them back-to-back, okay, before the bye, that's... Do they lose a second game there? Man, imagine if they're like 5-2. What would that be? 2-1, 2-2, 3. Yeah, 5-2. They've got Penn State coming in, and they're 5-2. They got to run the table to make the playoff. Penn State, and then they're fine for 3 weeks with Purdue, UCLA, and Rutgers. They are really fine for 3 weeks. That's got to be the easiest stretch drive of anybody leading into their rivalry game, not counting Michigan, leading into the rivalry game of anybody in the Big Ten. Purdue, UCLA, Rutgers. So if they are 5-2, they should get to 8-2 and be playing Michigan, or I'm sorry, they would be 9-2 and then going to Michigan to play for a playoff spot. That's what we need in this rivalry game between Ohio State and Michigan in this new era, as we need a playoff spot to be on the line. That was not the case last year. Ohio State was in the playoff, and Michigan was not in the playoff. Okay. Texas, Penn State, Michigan. And then this run here of, I'm telling you, it's going to be tricky. Minnesota. Well, really, tack on the Washington game. At Washington, Minnesota, at Illinois, at Wisconsin. If Ohio State goes 10-2, which that's their bottom floor. That's their floor. That Take out the interim season of 2011, and that's Ohio State's floor since 2004. Let that sink in. Ohio State's floor, their worst record since 2004 is 10-2. But we are looking at a schedule that is presenting them with 3 obvious opportunities for a loss: Texas, Penn State, Michigan, and then that stretch of Washington, Minnesota, Illinois, and Wisconsin, with 3 of those games on the road. Yes, Tukey G, I excluded 2011. Not that we excluded. I'm just basically saying they didn't have a head coach. They did not have one of their head coaches. That's the only point that I'm making. Okay, we can throw 2011 back in. That's fine. I'm not saying the season doesn't count. I'm saying that they've had 3 head coaches during this 20-year span that I'm referencing. They've had 3 head coaches, and none of them were there. They had half their offense suspended and had an interim head coach. They had their quarterback suspended, their best running back, their best wide receiver, and their left tackle suspended. I'm not saying that we are not counting the season. I'm just putting it in perspective. That's crazy when you think about it. When you think about a 20-year run and the worst season is 10-2. This is going to be difficult for Ohio State to get to 10-2. But at the same time, can they win all those games? Of course they can win all those games. They're probably better than all those teams. But when you put them all together, the probabilities of winning over and over and over and over oh, let's be kind to our buddy Pitt Snipe Husker. I also have to make sure I read that correctly. I'm gloating just a bit. There are some facts, some statistics within Ohio State's football history that are tough not to gloat about. But just can you just kind of think about that for a second? 10-2, the worst season, 20 years. That's the worst season. There was a 10-2 in 2005, 2008, 2009, 2017, and 21. It's pretty crazy. Look at Troy. Troy's coming strong with 11-1 or 12-0. It's similar to the way I looked at the Ohio State playoff run. When I looked at the gauntlet that they would have to play, thinking, okay, and I am the guy, by the way, that did predict every playoff game right, 11-0. I'm gloating again, Minnie. I'm gloating again, 11-0, picking playoff games this year, that I was looking at, okay, they're going to play Tennessee, Oregon, Texas, and Notre Dame. That's who they're going to be playing in the playoff run. If I'm correct, that's crazy. That's a gauntlet. Can they win all those games? Well, yeah, they can. They're, I think, better than all those teams. But when you put them all together, the odds of them winning all those games to win the national championship was obviously against them. But they did it. Much like Troy is stating here, I think the probabilities, the odds are against them only losing one game or going undefeated. But sometimes when you're just that good, you just play through even a gauntlet like they're looking at right there. They're not playing Oregon. or Iowa. But man, they've got to see Michigan, Penn State, Illinois, Texas. Yeah. So trying to be as unbiased as possible, it would be difficult for me to make a call on 10.5. I would tend to think under. I think they go 10-2 against this schedule. Next up, Oregon. Remember 12-0 last year in the regular season, 10.5 this year. And check out our conversation with Spencer McLaughlin from yesterday's show from Locked On. Our buddy Spencer McLaughlin did a nice job of breaking down Oregon football for us and his concerns at wide receiver, defensive back. They lost two of the best defensive tackles. Of course, Dylan Gabriel's gone. They lost Tez Johnson at wide receiver. Trayshawn Holden. Let's check out the Ducks. Spring game on the 26th. Poor Oklahoma State. If they weren't bad enough last year, they've got to go to Autzen Stadium on the second Saturday of the season. All right. Oregon also plays Oregon State. I am so happy that they kept that game. So that was a wise thing that the powers that be put together there with Oregon, Oregon State, and Washington, Washington State. So they're playing on the same Saturday, I believe, as they did last season. They should go 3-0 in the non-conference. They've got the game against Northwestern. They should go to Happy Valley at 4-0. If they didn't, then wow, then that's our upset of the year. So they go to Penn State. Let's say they come out with a loss. They're 4-1. Indiana at home. They go to Rutgers. They've got Wisconsin again. They played them in a tough game, 16-13 last year. At Iowa and Minnesota, they probably win all those games. Maybe Iowa's got a shot. Maybe that's a night game. Maybe that's an NBC. What do you think, Jackson? Can't you see Oregon going to Kinnick, night game, NBC? So that would be a second loss. And then they would finish out with USC at home and at Washington. It looks like a 10-2 season for Oregon. That would be my guess on the Ducks. Dante's Inferno is letting us know that the Penn State game, he doesn't like the timing of having to travel to Happy Valley after the Civil War. Yeah, I'm with you, Jackson. Like an NBC night game, Kinnick Stadium, Oregon goes in there. Love it. Dave's here. I thought I was on the Ohio State channel. Sorry, Dave. Ralph says Oregon goes 11-1 at worst. Troy likes Oregon at 10-2 with losses to Iowa and Washington, winning at Penn State. Ohio State season is Texas, Penn State, Michigan, and Illinois probably 2-2, could go 4-0. So probably 2-2, but they could go 4-0. Well, they could go 3-1. Thanks, Ralph, for clearing that up for us. Good to see that we bring on some impressive guests. All right. I got somebody producing from the chat here. Can't do anything right, can I? Blue Wolverine. Good to see you, buddy. I am saying this to Minnie, but I would say this to anybody because I don't recognize anybody else that's really new. So I've said this a zillion times, so you're just going to have to hear it again. But hey, before I let anyone know who I root for, before that ever came out, nobody could figure out who I rooted for. Nobody. All right. Let's be done with the Oregon Ducks before we get accused of this being an Oregon channel. I know that's coming soon. Penn State. We are now converting into our segment in which we make this a Penn State channel. Let me set the timer for 20 minutes. Here we go. Over under on Penn State, 10.5 wins. Sounds reasonable. Of course, the Penn State Nittany Lions went 11-1 last year. They have a slew of 10-2 seasons under James Franklin. And I do believe that this could be the best team in the Big Ten. When you look at Penn State, they got the two hosses back in the backfield, Nick Singleton and Katron Allen. I was starting to spit out Trayshawn Holden, and it became, something between Trayshawn Holden and Katron Allen. Katron Allen, Nick Singleton are back in the backfield for their junior seasons. Drew Aller back at quarterback. He is the best quarterback in the Big Ten as it stands right now. No, the wide receivers are not great, but look out for Kyron Hudson coming in from USC. Of course, they lose the best tight end in college football, but they had exceptional backup tight ends. Not coming up with their names off the top of my head right this second. I'm embarrassed by that. They do bring back every offensive lineman, excluding one, not just from the first team, but from the two deep on the depth chart. Penn State is pretty loaded. Despite losing maybe the best player in college football, Abdul Carter. Let's look at the Nittany Lions and what they have to face this year. Penn State's going to get the dreaded finger of shame. That non-conference schedule is pathetic. You are Penn State. You should be embarrassed of yourselves. You should be embarrassed. Nevada, FIU, Villanova. That's embarrassing. The last 2 years, their big game was against West Virginia. Not necessarily a stellar opponent on the national landscape, but still a respectable program and a rival from yesteryear. So we will know nothing about Penn State going into the Oregon game on September 27th. If we simply look at these two games, the two obvious losses would be against Oregon and against Ohio State, if they are to lose these games, but they've got to go to Kinnick to take on Iowa. This Penn State-Iowa series has been hotly contested over the last 10 or 15 years. Just check out the scores, although the last time they played, it was a blowout in Penn State's favor. But there are 3 potential losses, or if we listen to Tukey G, we've got a loss for Penn State going to the Rose Bowl against UCLA. The rest of the schedule is manageable, to be kind, against Indiana, Michigan State, Nebraska, and Rutgers. They do have to face the Huskers there. No daunting trips to make, but Indiana at home. And our friends at whatever site this is, I go to this site all the time. I should give them some credit. I guess it's FBS Schedules. They have rankings next to these teams. They've got Oregon at 6. Ohio State's number 1. That is not last year's ranking. So I don't know where they're coming up with these rankings. Indiana's number 17. I would take Penn State under 10.5. Yeah, if I had to, I would stay away. I would stay away. And I apologize to everyone out there who thinks that we were turning this into a Penn State channel. My apologies. Now we are moving on to, how many teams are in the Big Ten? Are we almost done with this? Purdue, 3.5. Wouldn't that be something for Purdue to go from 1 to 4? That's what they're looking to do there. All right, let's get to Purdue. I'm sure we are all eagerly awaiting the Purdue breakdown. Let's find the Purdue schedule. I got to hand it to Purdue, though. They always schedule some good out-of-conference teams. They always do. I think they've got Notre Dame this year, if we can find their schedule. There we go. There, we've got the Purdue spring game coming up in a couple weeks. Ball State, Southern Illinois, and Notre Dame. Okay, not as quite as impressive as it's been in the past. Last year they played, I think last year was Notre Dame and Oregon State. The year before was Fresno State, Syracuse, Virginia Tech. They had one year where they played like 3 good teams. I think it was Fresno State, Virginia Tech, and Syracuse. All right. Who is Purdue going to beat is basically what we're looking at after they win 2 non-conference games. They go to Northwestern, got a chance. They got Rutgers at home. There you go. 3-9. Get a win in the Big Ten. Barry Odom. That is the conclusion of our Purdue segment. We were doing our best not to turn that into a Purdue channel. All right, Rutgers at 5.5. Rutgers, of course, won 7 last year. They finished 7-5 before they lost the bowl game. They were 6-6 the year before. So Greg Schiano has gotten Rutgers to 2 consecutive bowl games. But this was the team last year, folks, that did not play Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan, Oregon, Iowa. Let's go to Rutgers here. Where are they? Oh, I had them right there. Okay, I'm lost now. Rutgers. The Scarlet Knights. I know they play no one. All right, this is pathetic. Ohio University. That could be a loss, actually. They could lose to the Bobcats. Miami. That could be a loss, but especially against Ohio. But Miami as well has been one of the better teams in the MAC. Norfolk State. Don't be surprised if Rutgers loses one of those 2 MAC games. Iowa at Minnesota. They got to play Oregon this year. Go to Washington. They beat the Huskies last year at home, barely. At Illinois, at Ohio State. Okay, they've got to win their non-conference games. And look at that. 2-game stretch at the end of the season. Ohio State on the road and Penn State. So they better get their bowl eligibility out of the way before their bye week. Beat Purdue, beat Maryland, win another game, go 3-6, win the non-conference games, get to 6-6 Rutgers to get yourself to a bowl game. That's what that looks like. But I'm going to say possibly 5-7. That's where Jed's going. 5-7. Minnie likes the quarterback there at Rutgers, Ethan Kalkimanis. He is the best Rutgers quarterback in at least a decade. Oh, Dave's going with a +3 on Purdue. Love it, Dave. Dave's going 4-8. They would be a good candidate. I knew there was a reason why I loved Pitt Snipe Husker here. He's got breaking news for us. So we now have, we got 35 teams in the Big Ten. As I do the math. I know Washington's left. I'm trying to think of, no. We still got USC and UCLA. All right, UCLA, 5-7 in Deshaun Foster's first year and the first year for the team in the Big Ten. So only 4.5 is what we're looking at for UCLA. I would say let's look at the Bruins here. When is UCLA going to have a good football team? They've got their spring showcase on May 3rd. Utah at the Rose Bowl on the opening weekend at UNLV. Don't necessarily consider that an automatic win for UCLA going to Vegas. And they've got New Mexico. They could be 3-0. They could be 1-2. There's a lot of variation there out of the gate. They go to Northwestern. They need to get a win there. Tukey G is telling us that they win against Penn State. If they would somehow do that, if UCLA would somehow pull out a win against Penn State, and even if they don't, they could be off to a rather good start. Northwestern, Michigan State, Maryland, even Indiana on the road is winnable. This is not a daunting schedule, or maybe it becomes one. Nebraska, whom UCLA defeated last year. This time they play them at home. They go to Ohio State. They've got Washington at home. They go to USC. If they could win 2 of the final 4, that would be brilliant. I'm thinking 1 there and 3 wins there. That's 4. And 2 there is 6. And UCLA goes bowling. How did college football get birthed from Rutgers? And the responses were what you would think they would be. I think we're looking at USC next. 7.5. They won 6 last year. Lincoln Riley needs to kick it in here into gear. So USC last year, of course, they played LSU and Notre Dame non-conference. This time they take a little lighter touch with Missouri State and Georgia Southern. A couple wins go to Purdue, Michigan State at home. USC gets off to a 4-0 start, most likely. Then they go to Illinois. Ooh, that's a rough ride right there. Go to Illinois. They do get a bye week, but they've got Michigan at Notre Dame, at Nebraska. Win 2 of those games, and you're 6-2 at this point. And then they finish off with those 4, and I'm looking at 8-4. Lose to Iowa, lose against Oregon, something like that. Maybe they get to 9-3. but I would bet on 8-4. Regardless, that would be the over on the 7.5. And finally, folks, the Washington Huskies. Nothing. Oh, we got two more. Nothing says Big Ten like Washington football. We know that they're playing Washington State outside the conference. All right, let's get that Washington schedule, wherever it might be. Where is it? Help me out, help me out. Man, I am looking at those Coastal Carolina shirts. Can they just give me a large? Colorado State, UC Davis, and Washington State. Well, Washington State beat Washington. They had a goal line stand. Washington needs to win all three of those games. Come on. And then these seem like two very obvious situations here, playing these four games. Ohio State, Michigan are losses, and Maryland and Rutgers are wins. Should be. That's 5-2. Illinois, Wisconsin, Purdue win 2 out of 3. That's 7-3. With UCLA on the road and Oregon. Is Washington going to go 8-4? Or maybe 7-5? They went 6-6 last year. Are you talking about me, Dave? Dave, rewind the tape. Rewind and go to the Michigan rundown. I said that Michigan might win every game. If you're talking about me. On Wisconsin. 5.5. This is Luke Fickell's third year, and they're trying to get over 5.5 wins. Brutal. This, I believe, is going to be a rough one, unless they just have a remarkable turnaround. This is not a great football team. They go to Alabama. They'll be 2-1. They go to Alabama. They will return at 2-1. Maryland could get them to 3-1. And then look at that stretch. Whoo! At Michigan, Iowa, Ohio State, and Oregon. They might lose all those games. They might lose all those games. Let's give them a win against Maryland to get to 3-1. Then they lose all those games and they're 3-5. And they win 2 of these final games. They're 5-7. They could lose all those games. You know, I think the 5.5, I'm going under on the 5.5 for Wisconsin. I'm going under. So that, folks, is the big wrap up on the Big Ten, the win totals against the schedules. If we're going to go with our famous +3 or -3 candidates, because we had 8 of them last year, 8 of them, this is tough to do. Michigan. There was somebody else I threw out there as being confident. Michigan and Michigan. I forget who the other one was I liked. Ohio State, 10-2. No, they're not going 7-5. Michigan, 7-5, 10-2. Okay, that's going to be one of my plus threes. And then we'll go with whoever threw out. I think it was Dave's here, had Purdue. I guess they get to 4 wins from 1-11. So they could be another one. Indiana going from 11-1 to 8-4. Penn State was 11-1. They're not going 8-4. Maryland, they're not going 7-5. No. Minnesota is not a candidate for this. Washington, no. UCLA, no. USC is not going. They could go 9-3. I think our other candidate, yes. I was going Nebraska from 6-6 to 9-3. Those are the 4 I like. I like those 4. So Michigan over, Nebraska over, I'm already forgetting who we had. But we got those 4 candidates right there. Michigan, Nebraska, Indiana under, and Purdue. I guess Purdue. All right, folks, we do appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football. You have yourself a nice weekend. We appreciate your contributions. Please like and subscribe and do all those good things before you leave. And again, we appreciate the Super Chat contributions as well. Venmo, PayPal, and Cash App. You see the links are down in the description section down below. Don't forget this gem right here. Disputed National Champions. Pick it up. You'll love it. It's 100 pages. Easy read. Large font lists. If you don't like to read, how many people do I talk to that go, I hate reading? I'm not a big reader. If I read like 7 pages at a time, then I'm kind of done. I like reading about 7 pages. I can get to about 6, 7, 8 pages, then that's enough for me. All right, folks, appreciate you being here. Next week, oh man, we've got some great guests. Matt Moscona from ESPN Radio, Peter Burns, ESPN, SEC Network. Got Isaiah Hull coming in from Wolverines Wire. Ryan Abraham from 247 Sports, Inside Troy. Greg Fugar. It's going to be a great week. And also, I'm going to release my program rankings right here on this very show. Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern. See you on Monday.